Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of Drawing Animals from the Galapagos Islands with Matt. I am Matt, an instructor here at the Florida Aquarium, and once again we are drawing some animals from the Galapagos Islands to go along with Dr. Ellen Prager's reading of her book, Escape Galapagos. When you can hear that reading over on our Facebook page for the Florida Aquarium, you can also find videos on our YouTube page and also links to those on the Florida Aquarium website. Now, this is the third of the series that I am doing of animals from the Galapagos, and in this particular one, I'm going to draw what I think is maybe the most iconical animal of the Galapagos Islands, and that, of course, is the beautiful, majestic Galapagos tortoise. Again, thank you to my Uncle Ralph for supplying that photograph. And let's get started. So what I decided to do is draw a couple tortoises from different angles. And these are a little bit cartoony, but I did want to make them into a coloring page, which you can find over on the Florida Aquarium's website under the Education tab and then Digital Resources. You'll also find the sea lions from last week and the marine iguanas from the week before that. So here I am just laying down the sketch layer. And again, if you're joining us for the first time, you don't have to draw this digitally. I'm drawing this on an application called Procreate on an iPad with an Apple Pencil. But you can use a regular pencil and a piece of paper. Don't use a regular pencil on an iPad because that would be bad. But anyway, this is your sketch layer, and this is where you're going to put light lines down. I'm using a different color just so I can distinguish it easier when I go over it with what I'm going to call an ink brush in a little bit. But I'm putting in the details, and this is where you can make sure you've got all of your proportions the way you want them. You can kind of lay out the whole design the way you want it. Now, one of the advantages of working digitally is I can move things around. I can change things rather easily. But I'm still going to use that same sort of principle of getting my basic structure in, putting in that foundation, and then going in with detail, which is what I'm doing here, starting on this tortoise's head. Now, the Galapagos tortoise is a huge, huge species of tortoise. They can weigh almost 1,000 pounds, and they can live probably well over 150 years. They're quite magnificent animals, and there's actually not just a Galapagos tortoise species. There's probably 11 living today, maybe more different species living today, but pretty remarkable animals. And to get this big, you'd think they must eat a really hearty, fatty diet. No, these guys are herbivores, which means that they are plant eaters. So they're just roaming around these islands eating various types of plants that they can find. They'll eat everything from like cacti, grasses, lichens, berries, anything really that's around, they are going to eat if it's a plant. And here we're putting in the little toes here. Now, I'm not making this photorealistic. Like I said, I'm doing it cartoonish. So sometimes if you see cartoons of humans, they may only have 4 fingers. And if you see a tortoise, it may only have 3 claws. And that's okay because it's just a cartoon representation. It doesn't have to be completely accurate. But that representation is letting you know that what this animal looks like in real life. And I am basing it on some photo references. So, I didn't just draw a turtle. I did try and draw specifically a Galapagos tortoise. Now, I want to represent the scales, and I'm not going to draw every scale in because it would look really busy if I did that with this style drawing. It just wouldn't look right. But I did want to represent them in some fashion. Now, I could have done it with just color when I went to color this in, but because this is a coloring sheet, I didn't want to do that either. So when you're drawing a line drawing like this, whether you're going to color it or not, one way you can represent things like scales is by just sort of drawing a hint of them. So you can see I did that on the legs there. Same with those neck wrinkles. If you look at a picture of a Galapagos tortoise, they are very, very wrinkly. They look very old and wise. But I didn't want to draw all that because it would just look busy. It wouldn't look right. So you just want to sort of represent those basic ideas. Now, I decided to do another drawing of a Galapagos tortoise because for my color page, I thought one Galapagos tortoise just wouldn't be that interesting. So here we're going to do sort of a front view of a Galapagos tortoise. And right now I'm drawing that sort of high domed shell. If you've been following along with our C-SPAN episodes, I did do sea turtles at one point, and they have a very flattened shell. It's very hydrodynamic, which means that it can go through the water without creating a lot of drag. Because let's face it, if you were trying to swim through the water and you had a tortoise shell, that would be a drag. But for these guys, they're just walking slowly on land. I mean, you don't have to be that fast when your prey is a piece of grass. So they can have this big high domed shell and be a little bit on the slow side. They don't have any natural predators that they have to worry about, especially when they're adults. And so it's all right. That works out pretty well for them. So here I'm kind of, now when you draw a head-on view, like I'm doing here, what I was going to say is I'm trying to represent that, and it can be a little tricky, a little challenging to do because you're looking straight at this animal's face, and how do you make it not look flat? Well, you have to look for the curves, you have to look for the bends, you have to look for the arches, and try and represent those either through line or colors or tones, shades, that sort of thing. Since this is, again, being designed as a coloring page, I wanted to try and really get that across with lines, and then when you guys color it, then you can make it even more representative of a three-dimensional object. And here we're going to start going in with our ink on this one. There we go. And you'll notice that I'm sort of varying the line weight, and that also can help represent a two-dimensional object and make it look three-dimensional on paper, or in this case on a screen. The thicker lines might make it look like it's darker in shadow or heavier. There's a lot of little things you can do to try and sort of make those lines make a little bit more sense and sort of give the real picture of your drawing. All right, so here we go. Got the neck in there, and here is one of those legs. Now, I noticed when I was looking at all the photos that my Uncle Ralph took and other references of Galapagos tortoises that they tend to like to lay around with their front legs just kind of sprawled out. So when they're not walking around, that's kind of it seems like that's their go-to, at least for the majority of tortoises that I observed through pictures and a little bit of experience with seeing them live. But yeah, so I wanted to represent that because this tortoise is going to be hanging out by a little watering hole. When you see the finished color page at the end, I'll show you what that looks like, and you'll see that he or she is hanging out by the watering hole, and this other one's kind of walking in the foreground. Now, when I'm putting this ink layer in, I'm trying to get all my lines exactly how I want them, and spending a little more time on the details. My rough drawing doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to give me a general idea of where I want things, and then I can go in and really hammer out those details and make it look just so. And you can see here, I decided I didn't like those scales. There was too many of them. And so I decided to go back to the 3-scale model that I'd used on all the other tortoise legs pretty much in this drawing. It just didn't look right. So if you're doing this on traditional media like paper and pencil and ink, you want to make sure that you really get that figured out either in pencil, or you want to make sure you take extra care when you're laying that ink layer down, because you can't necessarily erase it like I did on this iPad tablet. So there we go. Now I'm just putting in the scales on the carapace. That is the top of the shell of this animal. The bottom shell is called the plastron. And I'm not making these scales 100% accurate, but I'm making them fairly accurate. And looking at a turtle shell or a tortoise shell, you can kind of see how the scales line up and everything. So there we go. There is our Galapagos tortoise drawing. I'm going to move this over just to add a couple more details. I want to add some highlights to the eyes here, and I forgot to do that. So let's put it on the tortoise that's laying down on the ground here. Oh, and also some neck wrinkles. But I do want to thank you guys for watching this video. If you did enjoy it, then you can leave a comment over on Facebook. Make sure to hit that thumbs up on YouTube and let us know. And if you do color the coloring page, please share it with us over on Facebook. Again, thank you for watching, and until next time, I will see you later.